Before we roll into the details, weigh in and make your voice count. Do you think the elbow played a decisive role in the outcome, or was this simply a dominant, legitimate victory by an exceptional fighter? Drop your thoughts in the comments, share this report with a fellow boxing fan, and subscribe so you don't miss any updates on the recovery, the schedule, and what comes next for both camps. Your perspective matters in this debate, and we'll be following every development closely. Terence Crawford's historic victory over Canelo Alvarez is still reverberating across the boxing world, and weeks later, the conversation hasn't slowed. In fact, it has intensified. News that Canelo will undergo elbow surgery and be sidelined for an estimated 5 to 6 months has reignited a debate that cuts to the heart of how fans interpret big fights. Was the injury a decisive factor that limited one of the era's most consistent champions, or is it being used as an explanation in the aftermath of a clear, comprehensive defeat? The stakes around that question feel unusually high because of the context. This was not a routine loss. For many, it ranks among the most painful defeats of Canelo's career, not only because of the stage, a marquee matchup at Allegiant Stadium watched by fans around the world, but also because of the implications. The fight was billed as a generational crossroads, a meeting of a Mexican icon with one of the most complete pound-for-pound boxers of the modern era. Crawford delivered a performance that matched the moment, seizing control of the action, dictating range, neutralizing counters, and steadily taking the air out of Alvarez's attack. From the opening rounds, the timing, the reads, and the footwork were evident. Crawford didn't just win, he dismantled the rhythm that has made Canelo so hard to solve. The post-fight narrative seemed settled, until the surgery news surfaced. Reports indicate Canelo will undergo a procedure on his elbow and will need roughly 5 to 6 months away from the ring. That recovery window disrupts more than a training camp. It puts his obligations under the Riyadh season contract on hold, a deal understood to include at least 2 more major fights. For one of boxing's most bankable stars, a long layoff changes the calendar, the matchmaking, and the momentum. It also forces a deeper look at what, exactly, he was carrying into fight night and how much it affected what we saw. This is not the first time the Mexican superstar has confronted serious physical setbacks. After completing his trilogy with Gennady Golovkin, he underwent surgery on his wrist and returned in 2023 to defend his position as one of boxing's defining figures. That decision to come back, recalibrate, and keep facing elite competition is part of what has made Canelo Alvarez a global draw. He fights often, he fights big, and he rarely allows setbacks to dictate the script. That history is why the current surgery update feels so significant. Fans have seen him manage pain and adjust across training cycles. Now they're asking whether the elbow, specifically, shaped the outcome against Crawford at Allegiant Stadium. The core of the debate is straightforward. Crawford won convincingly. He controlled the pace, found consistent counters, and expanded his lead as the rounds progressed. At the same time, Alvarez's punch output and combination volume appeared lower than supporters expected, particularly in sequences where he typically relies on patient pressure and thudding bodywork to break opponents down. As soon as the elbow surgery news dropped, the comments flooded social media. Well, that explains why he wasn't throwing a lot of punches. Others pushed back hard, arguing that using the injury as a focal point minimizes a complete performance by a fighter who has built a reputation on ring IQ, adjustment, and mean finishing instincts. Both perspectives are loud. Both have evidence to cite. And both now sit at the center of boxing's most polarizing conversation. To assess the question fairly, it helps to revisit what we saw in the ring. Crawford's approach began with a jab, a deceptive rangefinder he used to set up hard counters, disrupt rhythm, and force Canelo to reset. He switched looks when needed, angled out of the pocket rather than backing straight up, and picked spots to plant his feet and let clean shots go. It wasn't a whirlwind of volume, it was composure layered with precision. Every success reinforced the next decision. Every pivot robbed Canelo of the chance to explode forward. As the rounds ticked by, the fight bent toward Crawford's strengths. The defense was tight. The counters were there. The traps kept producing. You didn't need slow-motion replays to understand who was in control. For fans making the injury case, the focal point is biomechanics. An elbow injury can transform a fight long before the bell rings. It can limit extension on the jab, dull snap on the straight right or left, sap confidence in hooks to the body, and make it difficult to let combinations flow. Fighters protect pain, often subconsciously, which can mean pulling punches, hesitating mid-exchange, or avoiding certain angles entirely. In that light, a lower punch count becomes less a tactical choice and more a necessity. If Canelo's elbow was compromised heading in, the argument goes, he was fighting with one hand metaphorically tied, and against a technician like Crawford, that handicap proved insurmountable. There's logic there. But the opposing view is equally compelling. Injuries are part of the sport, and champions are judged on what happens when the bell rings. Crawford's performance meets every standard of excellence we use to evaluate a great win. He had the cleaner work, the command of distance, and the better answers whenever the exchanges heated up. He nullified Canelo's best sequences and imposed a rhythm that made the ring feel smaller for the aggressive fighter. When a boxer executes at that level, the simplest explanation is often the right one. He was the better fighter on the night. That's not a slight to Alvarez. It's a recognition of Crawford's mastery. It's also important to note the way high-level camps handle injuries. Pre-fight medicals are designed to ensure a fighter is fit to compete. Teams manage training loads, tailor sparring, and protect the affected area as much as possible. If the injury surfaces after the fight in the form of a required procedure, it doesn't retroactively change the result. It clarifies what the fighter endured and may explain elements of the performance. That nuance is easily lost in the heat of debate, but it matters if we want to keep faith with both athletes' professionalism. Canelo fought. Crawford won. The timeline of the surgery adds context, not a caveat to the official outcome. That's where matchmaking becomes delicate. Some observers believe Canelo should take a tune-up bout upon his return. That path is common after surgery and long layoffs. A lower-stakes fight allows a champion to get rounds, test the elbow under the lights, and shake off ring rust without the immediate risk of an elite opponent capitalizing on hesitancy. Others counter that Alvarez, after so many years at the top level and with obligations under Riyadh season, may not have the appetite for a soft landing. The market demands marquee events. The schedule expects headline names. And if Canelo feels good in camp, he may prefer to jump straight into a major fight that matters in the division. There's also the retirement chatter, inevitable in the wake of a tough defeat and a new surgery. Retirement talk tends to flare after any significant loss by a veteran star, and it often says more about fan anxiety than fighter readiness. Canelo's resume, discipline, and history of rebounding from injuries argue strongly against the idea that he's done. He has been one of boxing's most durable attractions for a reason. He picks challenging fights, handles the grind, and brings an intensity to preparation that sets a standard. Whether he chooses a tune-up or a top contender for his return, the picture will become clearer once he's through rehab and can gauge how the elbow responds to a full camp. While that process plays out, Terence Crawford is enjoying the view from the summit. Beating a superstar on a stage as big as Allegiant Stadium is the kind of win that redefines a career even for someone already celebrated as one of the best pound-for-pound fighters alive. The performance validated years of claims about his skill set. The timing, the balance, the ability to switch tempo and stance, the cold-eyed patience to wait for the perfect counter, and the discipline to stay within the plan. He showed complete command. For a fighter who has long insisted that greatness is measured by what you do against great opposition, this was the exclamation point. Crawford's victory also opens a wider conversation about legacy. How far can he take this run? What weight classes does he want to target next? Which names will define the next chapter? When a fighter delivers on the biggest stage, the opportunities expand. Networks, promoters, and fans all want to be part of the next event. There will be calls for immediate rematches, for unifications, for clashes with other champions who can test him in new ways. The logistics are never simple in boxing, but the demand for Crawford is now undeniable. He has reached the rare tier where every fight feels like a referendum on the era. A rematch with Canelo would be one way to answer the injury debate once and for all. If the elbow was a major factor, the thinking goes, a healthy Alvarez would pose a different set of problems in a return bout. Negotiating something like that is complicated. It depends on medical clearance, on Riyadh season's calendar, on broadcast partners, and on Crawford's own plans. From a competitive standpoint, though, the storyline is obvious. A rematch would either confirm Crawford's supremacy or give Canelo a path to immediate redemption. Either way, it would be one of the biggest boxing events on the calendar. For fans trying to read the tea leaves, it helps to keep the business context in view. The Riyadh season partnership has changed the shape of boxing schedule, creating big night platforms that can carry blockbuster fights with global attention. Canelo remains central to that ecosystem. His recovery will influence not just one fight, but the sequencing of multiple cards. For Crawford, the question is whether he waits on that timeline or stays active, taking another high-profile fight while Alvarez heals. Activity has its own rewards: sharpness, momentum, revenue, and he is now in the position to pick from a short list of premium options. The technical implications of the elbow injury deserve a moment, too. Among fighters and trainers, elbow troubles are not rare, especially for punchers who throw with full commitment to the body. Bone spurs, tendon inflammation, and ligament irritation can develop over years of repetitive impact. Surgery can address the root issue, but the rehab isn't just about tissue healing. It's about restoring confidence in the chain of movement from shoulder to wrist. Every punch is a kinetic sequence. If any link is compromised, the whole chain suffers. That's why you often see post-surgery fighters spend extra time on mechanics, quietly refining trajectory and angle to regain snap without overloading the joint. Viewed through that lens, some of what we saw in the fight makes intuitive sense. Canelo's jab was there, but the typical snap didn't build into sustained combinations the way it often does. His signature counters, particularly the compact hooks after slipping a shot, didn't appear as frequently. At the same time, that wasn't only about the elbow. Crawford's feints, his footwork outside the lead foot, and his ability to change the angle off the exit all kept Alvarez from settling his feet. It's the intersection of factors that defines great matchups. A measured defense disarms a power puncher. A surgical counterpuncher amplifies the effect by offering few openings. Even a fully healthy fighter can look hesitant against that kind of control. The way fans have engaged with this result underscores boxing's enduring pull. The sport thrives on arguments like this: injury context versus pure merit, styles making fights, legacy conversations that draw in casual viewers alongside purists. In Mexico, where Canelo represents more than a champion, he's a symbol of national pride. There is genuine frustration at seeing him compromised, and real disappointment at the idea that a physical issue might have muted his strengths. Among Crawford supporters, the dominant feeling is pride in a fighter who has long claimed he would rise to the occasion when given the platform. Both sentiments can be true. Both reflect the depth of emotion elite boxing generates. There is also a human element worth remembering. A fighter's prime is finite. Every surgery, every training camp, every 4 a.m. run draws from the same finite reservoir. When someone like Canelo chooses to undergo an elbow procedure knowing it will cost him half a year of his mid-30s, it speaks to the seriousness of the issue, and to his intent to keep competing at the standard he sets for himself. On the other side, Crawford's ability to maintain discipline after reaching the mountaintop will define how long he stays there. Greatness is cemented not just by getting to the top, but by what you do with the view.